Good day. If you're a student of history, you would have known about the exploits of people like Vasco da Gama, Marco Polo, and if you're in Africa, you know of Robert Louis Stevenson and Henry Stanley. You will hear of all these explorers and all these people who set forth. You will also probably know about companies like the British East Indian Company, the Royal Niger Company, and all those companies, the Hudson Company that came to America, and all the companies that moved around the world in search of goods and services to trade, mainly goods. For the Americans, it was mainly, and the Russians then, it was mainly fur. And for the those in the East, it was silk, it was spices. Those who went to India, trade has facilitated a lot of discoveries and a lot of travels between people around the world. And these discoveries and these centers of trade, this trade led to centers like Damascus, Cairo. We also know of places like London. We know about Antwerp. We know about Hong Kong, Shanghai, and all these places where trade tend to take place. And these centers of trade ultimately became centers of exchange of ideas, exchange of viewpoints of the world. These viewpoints of the world promote religion. And religion is it's one of the biggest defining things of man. You will also find out that even though religions are different, there's still cleavages within these religions. So you in Christianity, you will find that Christians also have Catholics and they have Protestants. And even in the Catholic faith, they will have those who are Jesuits, those who are Augustine Franks and Frankish. They have subdivisions of all because they have doctrinal differences. These doctrinal differences move into locations with man. They move into man, they shape societies, and sometimes they shape the behaviors and our global views and outlooks of man. We know how there's been conflict in the United Kingdom because of the Catholicism and the fact that one part of United Kingdom, the Irish, refused to become Protestants, and they, for that reason, also have the issues of conflict with those who are the Protestants. The same Protestant Europe, England was challenged by France and challenged by most of those Catholic countries that are in Europe. So religion really matters. This also is what we see in the Middle East, where the Middle East is divided between Sunnis, Wahhabis, Sufis, Shia. These religions define their outlook to the world. It shapes their worldview. It shapes how they see things, and it shapes the countries we see today and why these countries are in conflict. So there's this tie-in between trade. There's this tie-in between sharing and exchange of ideas, and there's also this tie-in between religion and the various doctrinal differences in religion. And this shape geopolitics because right there in the Middle East, smack in the Middle East, out of nowhere comes a Jewish settlement. And for that Zionist outlook that they should come and congregate in that location, it was given to them 3,000 years ago, has shaped the viewpoint of Israel and the expansionist desire of Israel and how that is creating conflict within that neighborhood. But at the heart of all this, trade and religion is the desire of man to continue to make profit and to continue to push his own view of the world to the other person, sometimes amicably, sometimes at the point of the sword. And these are the essential ingredients of geopolitics. This is what really is driving the world. Ideas all the time. My idea always better than yours. We saw two great points. We were just coming out of two great realities where the neoliberal ideas of the West came into conflict with the communist ideas of Russia, South, and of then Soviet Union and China, and the Vietnam, communist Vietnam. So ideas bring conflict to a large extent. So there's this mix of trade, this mix of ideas, and this mix of viewpoints that tend to create conflict all the time and redefine borders and redefine strategies and shape the conflict and the interest and the push for expansionism that we see all around the world going on. At this point, we are now seeing a conflict going on in Ukraine. At the heart of it is the neoliberal view that they can expand anywhere and they can bring democracy and bring all their ideals to Russia's door front. And Russia says no. However you look at it, no matter how idealistic your intentions are, it's a security threat to us. Now we have that conflict in Ukraine. Recently, it just emerged that as we see every day that there's decline in Ukraine's fortune because of one, America's stepping back from that war. Two, we also see a fact that the Ukrainians are losing a lot of ground on the battlefront. Finally, now, a big fund that was supposed to be used in reconstructing Ukraine whenever they won that war, because it was expected in the West that they would win the war. That fund is being closed down by the world's biggest private equity firm by assets under management, Blackrock. Blackrock is by far the biggest investor on the stock exchange or in the stock exchange in America, because financial services, regarding financial services, they control asset under management of $10 trillion. They are the preeminent and number one choice for most pension funds across America, and most of the funds that funnel money into giving to BlackRock to manage on their behalf. And one of the things BlackRock has decided to do, among the various suites of things they do, is that they manage real estate, they manage infrastructure, because they got recently bought over a fund led by Nigerians, Ogunlesi. They bought over the Global Infrastructure Fund Partners, GIP. And so they manage infrastructure around the world. But BlackRock has finally decided that Ukraine is not going to possibly not win in this war. And they've lost all the assets that would have helped them in rebuilding Ukraine. And a lot of people are not more interested in that particular project. So the fund is not doing too well. So BlackRock has closed that fund. That doesn't sound too well again for Ukraine. Good day. Welcome to my channel, Ibima Amungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I expressed in this video, please put them in the comment section. We are at a time where we are seeing a lot of movements on the geopolitical field. We're seeing borders being redrawn right in front of our eyes. In recent times, we saw the creation of South Sudan. That came after almost 20 years of conflict. We are also seeing now the expansion and redefinition of the Middle East. One country, Israel, has decided that it has a right to be in that neighborhood, and it is going to force its will and its way on every other person in that neighborhood. And Israel has been forceful in making its own, claiming its share of the Middle East. But while Israel is doing what it's doing in Gaza, in the Israeli space there, in former what the people call British-controlled Palestine, you will see that there are a lot of countries who support or do not support, or oppose or do not oppose Israel. And those countries have their own reasons for not doing so. For like Saudi Arabia, Wahhabis, the religion of the Wahhabism there is a little bit, their view of Islam is a little bit intense. The Shia, their own view of Islam is also intense, but very different at variance with that of the Wahhabis. At the heart of it all is post Mohammedan, after the death of Muhammad, the view of the world and who should be the leader of the Islam is what has caused these cleavages. So the Sunnis and the Shias have a different outlook. Then the Safis, then the Aziris. So there's a lot of differences, and these people and their viewpoints make them more to accommodate Israel's position or to oppose Israel's position. And that is why we have countries like Iran challenging the existence and the reality called Israel unrelentlessly, while those other ones are accommodating them. But like I've said before, I've said this, This expansion of views and ideas and all the conflicts is causing around the world, and how this idea has brought NATO right down to the doorsteps of Ukraine is one reality now that is, we will say, dawning on the West as to the limit to which they can push their ideas and their vision of the world. Because let's not forget that there was a time that the Americans and under the framework of NATO could do anything they wanted. They bombed Yugoslavia without UN Security Council resolutions unilaterally. They bombed Libya. They invaded Iraq. They did whatever they wanted to do. They created Kosovo. They reshaped the map of Serbia. They destroyed Yugoslavia, broke it into countries, Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, and smaller countries. That is the power that with which they had. They could reshape things. And this redefinition of the map of the world now we are seeing happening right in front of us as even Syria is being redrawn. Israel has gone to take a large claim of the country. Turkey is taking its own claim, and what is left of Syria is becoming smaller. And the people who are running Syria now are more amenable to the people in Saudi Arabia and to most of the Sunnis because they are closer in alignment to the Wahhabist way of thinking. So this is just how geopolitics works. And now that we are seeing this, Israel is trying to reinforce its stay. It has an ongoing conflict with Gaza. Its methods have been very brutal. A lot of people have called it whatever names they want to call it. But these are the methods that every other country that is occupying a territory and trying to force out any local indigenous community always adopts. The Americans adopted it in forcing out or pacifying. They use a nice word, pacify, the Indians. It just emerged recently now that finally the Australian government and the New Zealand government are admitting to the fact that they committed genocide. When an indigenous community doesn't have the technology, know-how, and strength to fight off and fend off these invaders, they tend to take over. It's a thing of nature. It's ironical because even in nature itself, we see it. In America here, there's a region called the Everglades, and they introduce invasive species, a python from Burma called the Burmese python. It has practically decimated the local wildlife. This is just what happened when the Spaniards too went into South America. First, they infected them with smallpox, then later they used their technology, superior technology, then they gone. Because they gone, nothing was more superior than a thunder stick, as the Africans used to call it. It spews out thunder and it kills instantly. And not bow and arrows couldn't just do it. And they took over and got a lot of gold. So Spain was one time the most preeminent country in the world, built large Spanish armadas and redefined and created the countries that we now know. This is the reality of humanity. It keeps changing. It keeps changing for the strongest, even though people come up with nice frameworks where they try to say that we are good people. They try to control themselves. Instruments like the United Nations, instruments like so many conventions, Geneva Conventions. But now tell me, who is the biggest challenge to all these conventions? The strongest, funny enough, the hegemonic country in the world, America. America is the one that continuously breaks those conventions, the same conventions written by the West, because it is the one that has the might. And many times, most other countries can't do anything about it. It's only recently that one or two countries are standing up to America and challenging because now they can create pathways. So China can now create a pathway economically and even militarily for other countries to survive in. Russia is creating a pathway and telling you that it has its own sovereignty. But for many other countries, they can't, and they live by the rules set by both the G7 countries, the Western countries, and all the countries that define the world as they choose to define it. That era when they used to have the concept of the rule-based world. It's over. Now they make the rules and they break the rules. So Netanyahu is coming to visit Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. And Netanyahu is going to press for a lot of things, especially as regards to Gaza. Gaza, in this president, he seems to have a good supporter because Netanyahu, we should know, has redefined the Middle East more than any other person. Especially, he has taken the project of expanding the influence of Israel much more because if nothing else, he has all the countries that challenge Israel, all the institutions that challenge Israel, he has done his own in destroying them. He may have his own reasons for doing that, but even though he may not have physically expanded the Israeli space, he has done his own bit in removing Hamas, destroying Hamas, even though they are not completely dead, destroying and limiting the power of Hezbollah, limiting the power of the Syrians because he removed Assad, limiting all those people that challenged Israel's right to do what it's doing in Gaza. And for that, he has an ally in President Donald Trump, who even wants the people in Gaza to be dispersed out of that place, sent away, and Gaza becomes a resort, rebuilt as a resort for the pleasure, I guess, of rich people. So we are seeing history changing. We are seeing all this happen, maps being redefined, alliances being created, and in front of our eyes, all in the name of geopolitics. One other thing, too, I should mention is that Iran has always been stubborn about forming a relationship with Russia. It has history on it that it looks to all the time. But if you know the European history a lot, you will know how at different times they were both enemies and then later they become allies. And when they find a common threat, they become allies. That happened several times between the people of Orange, the people of England, the people of Spain, even the people of France. There was always shifting alliances, and that's why they always say no permanent friend, only permanent interest. But for the Iranians, in recent times, they've had a long, brutal history with the Soviet Union and a lot of countries that try to do them harm. So forming new relationships is really hard for them, and but we're seeing new alliances form. This period is the period when they are having BRICS and the BRICS meeting in Rio de Janeiro, and Iran has become a very important part of that institution. But if for nothing else at all, it is being urged to form closer relationships as regards to its security with Russia and with China. Because if they don't form this relationship, the fact that they continue to stand against Israel, a resurgent Israel, a Israel led by Netanyahu, they will always be vulnerable and susceptible to attack by the Israelis and the Americans under Trump. So an alliance, whether they like it or not, in the sake of hardcore realities of geopolitics, must be formed. This is just how it is. And while we are seeing the world step away from Ukraine, we are seeing that Russia is insisting because it has the might, it has the strength, it has withstood all that has been thrown at it. It's now redefining the law and saying that West back off. This is what we want of Ukraine, and this is what we must get out of Ukraine. Israel also is trying to push. It has tried and checked it, but it found out there is a limit to its push in Israel. The logistics just don't add up there. There's too much of a distance between those two entities, but it is not going to relent. We are seeing history and we are seeing maps and we are seeing alliances being redefined and being reshaped in this age and time. And we really don't know how the world is going to look like in a few years. But this is how geopolitics and all its components move about. Trade, commodities, and all the interest of man, the desire for profits. Let's not forget, even though I may have forgotten to mention at the early stages of it, at the heart of all this conflict also is oil. At the heart of the conflict, the expansion of the Spanish to South America was gold. At the heart of the expansion of the British to India was cotton and was also spices. So these are the things that motivate man. And it is one who is strongest that will always have it. Sometimes also this interest may be just strategic location a country has as a market or as a military base. We just saw that happen in Chagos Island in Mauritius, where the British and the Americans are still hanging on to that place, even though it is so far away from them. But it's a point where they can see the influence of China and see the influence of India and all the other influence of all the geopolitical players in this reality. Same thing too for Djibouti. Djibouti has nothing to offer apart from the location it has as a very critical position in the Red Sea, and that is why it has Chinese, American, Russian bases now. All of them are all in that neighborhood. So this is just how these factors come together to shape geopolitics. You either have a commodity, then you become a geopolitical tool. You are strategically important. You have an idea or you're pushing, or possibly a religion you're hanging on to. This is where I end my video for today. If you have any comments, please put them in the comment section. If you like or even don't like, please put a like and share. Thank you very much. I'll see you in my next video.